Hi friends, today let us start our discussion with the continuation of our previous discussion depending upon the container services. So we have used container services in our last discussion. Now let's try to understand a few more concepts regarding how to develop our EJBs. So today's discussion will be developing our first EJBs. So to develop our EJBs, first we need to prepare the things. So the first step is preparation. So EJBs are normally composed of following things. So just we define each one of the components whatever we are trying to make use of inside this particular EJB implementation. So first of all we need bean implementation class. So like for other Java beans and all, we are making use of Java bean implementation, which is having the business logic along with the methods of get methods, set methods, and so on. So normally we make use of these things in session bean and the message driven bean. So this class written by the bean provider contains business logic then for a session or a message driven bean. So normally whenever we are trying to work with the beans, then it is annotated by appropriate bean type, that is javax.ejb.state, that is stateless. So here is a continuation, or stateful, depending upon whether it is a stateless bean or whether it is a stateful session bean. So if it is a message driven bean, then we go for javax.ejb.message driven. For instance, if I am trying to work with the stateless session bean, then we just annotate it using @javax.ejb.stateless, then give the definition of our Java bean. So all that's needed to declare a stateless session bean. So what are the components we use inside this? So first is the bean instance. So session and message driven bean, both of them make use of the bean instance. EJB container internally contains one or more instances of the bean implementation class to service session or message driven invocations. So these instances are not exposed to the client at all, but they are abstracted out by the way of the client view. So how the client is trying to make use of it, depending upon the view of the client, the bean instance will be invoked. So entity beans instances are plain old Java objects that may be created directly by the client using the new operator. So entity beans, wherein we need to save the things into our persistence or into our database. So for that reason, what we do is we make use of the entity beans to create a plain old Java objects for invocations. Whereas for session and message driven bean, the EJB container internally contains the instances which will be created automatically inside the Java bean class. So next is client view. So we usually make it for the session bean and the message driven bean, and this is the contract to which a client will interact with the EJB. So in the case of a session bean, the client we will take form of a business component or endpoint interface, all to be implemented by the EJB proxy. So message driven bean have no client view as they are received as messaging events. Entity beans also have no explicit view because clients will interact with the managed object directly. So what the thing I wanted to say here is, whenever we are trying to make use of the client view, then depending upon the client invocation of the methods, the client is going to interact with the EJB. So there will be a lot of security whenever we are trying to have the access towards the instances and the methods present inside the EJB container. So for that reason, what we do is we just give the client whatever he needs by making use of the EJB proxy. So EJB proxy, which I will be showing you in the coming slides. So EJB proxy is nothing but it acts as a mediator between the client and the container. But for entity beans, we don't need any explicit way, and this security, whatever entity bean is making use of, will be in the combination with the session bean, which we will be seeing a little bit later on. But with respect to message driven bean, there is no any client view, so because it is only used for managing the messaging events. So next, as I said previously, so let us consider that there is a client which is trying to make this server request, and there is a container with a handful of bean instances. So this is one instance, this is one instance, and there are many others. So whenever a client is trying to make use of EJB containers bean instances, then the client cannot directly have access towards the EJB container, but rather we need to make use of the proxy, which acts as a mediator between client and the EJB container. Only when certain conditions are satisfied, only then the client is allowed to have the access towards the EJB container by making use of this proxy. So next, we have interfaces. There are two interfaces, one is local interface and one is remote interface, and especially we will be using them for the session beans. So the local and remote, when referring to business, home or component interfaces, designate the relationship between the process running the client and the JVM and the EJB container. So sometimes we will be making use of the proxy in the local itself. Sometimes we'll be making use of the proxy using the remote methods. So while if we are making use of the local methods, then we go for the local interface, and when we are making use of the method which is present inside another computer or another server, then we go for remote interfaces. So this is nothing but the JVM takes part whenever we are trying to work with the remote interface and can try to have access towards the EJB container. So next is the business interface, where we are making use of the local or remote interface. We will be making use of the annotations, that is EJB.local and EJB.remote, depending upon whether that business interface must be used locally or whether it must be used as a remote method. So similarly, there is one more called as component interface, which is also known as the local or remote interface, contrasted with the business interfaces, which are most of the times EJB object or local object. So EJB object refers to remote, and EJB local object refers to the local object. So this will additionally define methods available to the client. It is obtained by the create methods of the home interface. So whenever we are trying to work with the component interface, then we see that we are using the get method, set method. Then in case of persistence means we make use of create method, then make use of some update method. So all those things will be done by making use of this component interfaces. So next is the home interface. So home interface, as I have said earlier, it is used by extending the EJB home or EJB local home, and may define methods with the prefix of create to return component interface references. So the home interface is used to create, find, and remove session bean references according to the EJB 2.x client contract. So the next last one is the endpoint interface, which is coming in the session beans. So the endpoint interface defines business methods that can be accessed from the application outside the EJB container by making use of some extra protocols. So here in this case, I have shown you the simple object access protocol, then XML remote procedure calls, then JAX remote procedure calls, and it is used for working with the different type of web-oriented protocols and so on. So for that, we need to do the endpoint interface. So this comes very handy when we are working with enterprise type of applications, because we see that endpoint interface is essential when we are working with the different set of network components. So next we are going with the message interface. So in the message driven bean, we make use of the message interface. So here we are trying to implement the message driven and activation config. Will give the configuration of the particular container, and we need to implement them by making use of my message driven bean, which is a class name, and it must implement the JMS, which is Java Message Services dot message listener, which is the class, and which is the interface that has to be implemented whenever I want to create a message driven bean. So similarly, when we are trying to create all these things, then there must be some naming conventions to be used for each one of the component or the constructs. So here we have the constructs, that is EJB, and then we have the implementation class, remote business interface, local business interface, remote home interface, local home interface, remote component interface, local component interface, endpoint interface. So all these interfaces are being used here in this particular program by making use of the ticket processing type of application. So when we are using that, then we use the suffix in the form of EJB, B in remote business. Means all these naming conventions will tell exactly what type of file or what type of application it is. For example, if I take this ticket processor, which is EJB, so I name it as EJB. Here also, ticket processor is the application, being is the billing implementation class. Then we have the remote business interface, which use the ticket processor remote business. So similarly, for the other things also, we just make use of the appropriate naming conventions depending upon what type of component or construct we are trying to use it inside the EJB. So, no XML generally speaking, EJB metadata may be supplied either by standard XML descriptor, that is EJB jar.xml. It contains all the metadata information about the container, and Java annotations or some combinations of the two in cases where there's overlap XML links and override. So most of the times we have seen how we are using the annotations to refer to say whether it is a stateless bean or stateful session bean or whether it is a message driven bean. So to say that, we need to use the XML descriptor. Then annotations on the bean implementation class, we'll be using something like EJB remote to say bean is remote. Then for stateless, I have said stateless must be done, and if I am using remote, then I must be using remote. And the class which is implementing class bean class, whatever I am using, it must implement some, that is some business remote class. So the remote business class, whatever I am trying to use, this interface, that interface must be implemented by the bean whatever I am writing. So the next step is coding the EJB. So here we have the interface called creator client common business, and it is making use of some functions, business methods. So the bean implementation class, where we are using some functionalities. Then we are also making use of the bean simple calculator bean, extends calculator bean this. So this is the super class and this is the inherited class. And most of the times we use only super class, and sometimes if there is any need, then we go for working with the inheritance classes also without disturbing the main bean class. The next, out of container testing is nothing but when we want to test any of the complete class, then we can test it by using out of the container and test it as a unit test as a single unit, and hence we make use of the function something like this. And here we are using the annotation for testing, and we are using the test case.set equals to, and we are using some operations here. So after making use of the unit testing of the bean component, whatever we have done, we go for integration testing, and for working with this, we must package the sources and the descriptors into Java archive file, then make use of the deployed file, and finally we make use of the standalone client to obtain the proxy references from the client and invoke upon them. So as I said, we have to package them, then deploy them into the container, and after deploying them into the container, we need to make use of the JDI, that is Java naming directory interface. We have to make use of the lookup functions present inside that, and invoke upon the reference and fetch the result. So here there is one small example for working with us. So we are using one calculator integration, and here we make use of the EJB, and here we see the JNDI name for this. Then there are some business methods, naming context, and so on. Then we are creating the obtain proxy references by using this naming context of lookup. Then we are making use of addition succeeds. If it is successful, then we are giving the actual sum. So this is how our EJB implementation actually works. but most of the times we don't go for coding because everything is provided by